Picture this: 6 hospitality businesses closing every single day for an entire year. That's not a dystopian prediction or some wild exaggeration from a doom-mongering tabloid. That's the actual warning from UK Hospitality, the industry body representing thousands of restaurants, hotels, pubs and bed and breakfasts across Britain. Over 2,000 venues could permanently shut their doors in 2026 unless the government acts, and acts fast. We're talking about a potential extinction-level event for Britain's hospitality sector, triggered not by a pandemic or an economic crash, but by a tax bomb set to detonate on the 1st of April. And no, that's not an April Fool's joke, though the timing is rather cruelly ironic. Quick favor, if you're finding this valuable, hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. Over 94% of you watching haven't subscribed yet. It's free, takes 1 second, and helps us massively. Cheers if you did. Now, back to the impending disaster. So what exactly is happening here? Why are we staring down the barrel of mass closures across one of Britain's most important industries? Well, it all comes down to something called business rates, which is essentially a property tax that businesses have to pay based on the value of the premises they occupy. And on the 1st of April, these rates are set to increase dramatically for hospitality businesses, with some venues facing eye-watering hikes that could genuinely be the difference between survival and closure. UK Hospitality has crunched the numbers, and the projections are absolutely brutal. They estimate that 574 hotels, 540 pubs, and 293 restaurants could close permanently in 2026. That's over 1,200 venues right there. And when you add in bed and breakfasts, cafes, and other hospitality businesses, you hit that terrifying figure of more than 2,000 closures. Think about what that means for your local high street, your favorite restaurant, that hotel you stay at when visiting family. 6 closures every single day means that by the end of the year, entire communities could have lost the businesses that make them vibrant and livable. Now, here's where it gets particularly painful. The burden is not being shared equally across the sector. Hotels are getting absolutely clobbered. The average hotel is looking at a business rates increase of £28,900 this year. £28,900 for 1 year. And over the next 3 years, hotels are facing cumulative increases of £205,200, which represents a 115% jump in their property tax liabilities. 115%! Imagine your council tax suddenly more than doubling. You'd be furious, right? Well, that's what hotels across Britain are dealing with, except their margins are already razor-thin after years of being battered by COVID, energy price spikes, and rising wage costs. Pubs, for comparison, are getting off slightly lighter, though lighter is a relative term when you're already struggling to keep the doors open. The average pub will see business rates rise by around £1,400 in 2026, which works out to roughly a 15% increase. Over 3 years, pub business rates are forecast to increase by 76%, adding around £12,900 to their overall bills. Now, £1,400 might not sound like the end of the world compared to what hotels are facing, but for a small village pub operating on tiny margins where every pint sold matters, that's still a significant hit that could be the final straw. And this disparity between how different types of hospitality businesses are being affected is actually crucial to understanding the political battle that's currently raging in Westminster. You see, the government has established a £4.3 billion fund specifically to support pubs facing higher rates. Pubs, not restaurants, not hotels, not bed and breakfasts, just pubs. And no, that's not an April Fool's joke, though the timing is rather cruelly ironic. Kate Nicholls, the chair of UK Hospitality, has been sounding the alarm about this for weeks. She's warned that time is running out for ministers to act and that businesses are facing what she's described as staggering increases in costs. She's absolutely right to use that word, staggering, because when you look at the cumulative impact of rising business rates, increased national insurance contributions that came in with Rachel Reeves' budget, higher minimum wages, and energy costs that remain stubbornly elevated, you're looking at a perfect storm of cost increases that would challenge even the healthiest businesses, let alone the ones that are still recovering from the pandemic. Nicholls has stressed that the impact will be felt far beyond public houses. Neighborhood restaurants, independent hotels and inns sit at the heart of their communities. They provide local jobs. They support farmers and food producers. They're often the social glue that holds small towns and villages together. When a restaurant closes in a market town, it's not just the owners and staff who suffer. It's the suppliers who lose a customer, the neighboring businesses who lose footfall, the community that loses a gathering place. The ripple effects of mass hospitality closures would be devastating for communities across Britain. UK Hospitality is calling for what Nicholls describes as a whole hospitality solution. Specifically, they want the business rates discount to be increased from 5 pence to 20 pence, which is the maximum permitted under existing legislation. That would provide meaningful relief across the entire sector, not just pubs, and would give businesses the breathing room they desperately need to absorb the other cost increases they're facing.
But here is the thing. This entire row has become so spectacularly messy, so laden with contradictions, and so perfectly emblematic of modern British politics that you absolutely need to understand what is actually happening beneath all the noise and fury. Quick favor, if you are loving this kind of political theatre, hit that subscribe button. Over 94% of viewers have not yet, and it is completely free. Takes a second and means the world to us. Thanks so much. If you did subscribe already, brilliant. Now let us crack on with what might be the most fascinating welfare row in recent memory. So, let us set the scene. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has decided that scrapping the two-child benefit cap is going to be Labour's big welfare move. Now, for those who might not be entirely familiar with what this cap actually does, let me break it down. The two-child limit means that families receive child benefit for their first 2 children, but if they have a third child, that third child does not get the benefit. It is, quite literally, a policy that says the government will help you with 2 kids, but after that, you're on your own. It was introduced by the Conservatives, and it has been an absolutely controversial policy from day one. Labour is now removing it, which means money will flow to around 450,000 children, potentially lifting them out of poverty by 2030. That's the big promise. That's the headline. And naturally, because this is British politics, everyone has immediately started arguing about exactly what this means, who it helps, and whether it is a good idea or an absolute disaster masquerading as compassion. Now, here is where Nigel Farage entered the chat, and this is where things got properly spicy. Farage came out and warned that Labour's policy means money for huge numbers of foreign-born people. That's the quote that has set absolutely everything on fire. He's essentially saying that because the policy does not discriminate based on where a person was born, it will benefit people who were not born in Britain, and that, he seems to suggest, is somehow problematic. This is where Rachel Reeves completely lost her patience, and honestly, you can almost understand why. Reeves essentially responded by painting a picture that is absolutely brutal in its clarity. She asked, does Nigel Farage want to go around and say, white, yeah, you can have the money, black, no, sorry, it's not for you? She then gave this incredibly specific example of a hypothetical mum who works in the National Health Service, who's lived here all her life, whose kids have lived here all their life, but who was born somewhere else. Under Farage's logic, that family would be denied the benefit, whilst a family next door who is British-born would get it. And Reeves said, quite bluntly, that makes her angry. That's not the sort of country she believes in. Fair point, really. The analogy cuts through all the noise and gets to the absolute heart of what Farage seems to be suggesting. She then went even further and suggested to The Guardian that Farage's comments were, by her assessment, racist. Not dog whistle racism, not problematic, not insensitive, racist. She said, "I don't really care what color a kid's skin is. Some deserve to be in poverty and some do not. That makes me pretty angry." Now that's a statement that puts down a marker. That's Reeves saying she's willing to use that word, willing to make that accusation, and frankly, willing to own it. Now, naturally, Reform absolutely hit back, and this is where it gets genuinely interesting, because the counter-argument is where we start to see the cracks in the logical foundation of what Reeves is saying. Zaya Youssef, Reform's policy chief, came out swinging and accused Reeves of ethno-nationalism. He posted on X, and pay attention to this because it's actually quite clever. He said that Reeves was essentially saying only white people can be British. He's turning her argument around and saying that by suggesting his comments are racist,